what's up guys? This is Two Awesome Men.
And we just watched the movie Manchester by the Sea, which is nominated for 6 Oscars.
Yeah, and 2 of those Oscars actually belong to the director and writer of this movie, Kenneth Lonergan, who actually did very well in this movie. This movie also has a pretty big cast as well. Some pretty big A-listers. You have Casey Affleck, you have Michelle Williams, and then you have Kyle Chandler. And another one of the actors that's not very well known in this movie, but still did a really good job, is a guy named Lucas Hedges.
So going into this movie, I was sort of scared and sort of hesitant because just hearing about what it's about and the name Manchester by the Sea, it just screamed a Lifetime movie to me. But it definitely had more of a raw and real feeling than those Lifetime movies have.
I was actually, as well, I was really dreading watching this movie. I actually thought this movie was going to be extremely boring.
Right, yeah.
Because, yeah, like you said, the name, and then I honestly didn't know much about this movie. I don't know why I never decided to go watch a trailer. But, this movie really surprised me, in all honesty. This movie was so real. I haven't watched very many movies before that are so real feeling. My favorite performance in this movie has to go to Casey Affleck,
who was nominated for Best Actor this year.
And he did such a great job in this movie. It was crazy because in a lot of movies like this, where this movie has a very sad, mellow feeling over the entire movie. And a lot of movies like that, you'll watch in the main actor or a lot of the actors, you'll see them trying to give this Oscar performance, this Oscar-worthy performance, this big, over-the-top crying scenes, screaming scenes. But you don't get any of that from Casey Affleck. You get this real feeling because Casey Affleck is he's a person filled with so much pain. And through the beginning of this movie, he wasn't very likable. He wasn't a very likable character.
He had this big emptiness in him, and he's sort of a disgruntled sort of alcoholic at the beginning.
Yeah, and there's something that happens I'm not going to bring up because I don't want to spoil anything, but you begin to understand this character very well. You begin to know who he is, and you begin to actually care for this character right after they show you what happens, and you're like, man, this character, he's filled with so much pain. And this pain has led him to just isolate himself from everybody, including all of his family.
A big highlight for this movie is definitely the story. And in fact, the idea for the story was brought to the director Kenneth Lonergan by Matt Damon. And Matt Damon was going to direct and star in the movie, and Lonergan was going to write. But Matt Damon had to drop out because of scheduling conflicts with The Martian. And so he stayed as a producer, but Ken Lonergan became the director, and he wrote, and then Casey Affleck was cast.
The story is a really big highlight of this movie. The story is very well written by Kenneth Lonergan. I've never actually heard of this director before, and he's this director. I've never really heard of him much or his writing. All I know is that he's actually been nominated for 2 other Oscars for his writing, and this movie really shows how great his writing is, because the story is Casey Affleck, and his brother dies, and so he's starting to deal with these guardianship issues on his brother's son, and he has to look over his son during this time.
He's sort of mentally unprepared to look over him because he's sort of an alcoholic, and he's sort of, like we were talking about, he's sort of disgruntled. So it's pretty interesting, and like not only is it a drama and there's a lot of good dialogue in this movie, but they actually add a lot of comedic parts to this movie, and it's like they weren't like spitting out jokes, but there was a lot of just funny parts to this movie and sort of comedic reliefs that I sort of like.
This movie also had a very interesting way of telling its story, because throughout the entire movie you have what's going on in the present, but then you also have these flashbacks that pop in randomly throughout the movie, and I like these flashbacks, and I like the way they're presented, because in one way I kind of like how they kind of trust the audience to know that, hey, this is a flashback, and so after a while you start to understand which is flashbacks, because there's certain people that aren't there, there's certain things that he talks about in the present that would make that flashback a flashback, and so you start to understand these things. But that kind of brings me to also one of my negative, and that is the flashbacks at the very beginning of the movie. Whenever you don't really know what this movie is, it's hard to tell that these movies these flashbacks are flashbacks, just for a little bit of time. For the first flashback or 2, I was kind of confused on what was going on.
Yeah, I agree. I do love the use of the flashbacks in this movie. I just felt like Some of the flashbacks to me were a little unnecessary. They didn't really add to the story that much. I mean, most of them were necessary. I felt like they were good. Just there were a couple that they could have taken out. And like you said, like the first half of the movie, it felt sort of, you couldn't really tell exactly what was going on. You could for the most part tell what was going on. It just got a little confusing at times. And like pretty much the last half of the movie anyways didn't really have that many flashbacks as the first half. Yeah, I actually really love the music in this movie. The composer, Leslie Barber, she did a fantastic job. However, the only downside for that point, I feel like they didn't really place it in the right places sometimes. Like there's some scenes where it needed to be dramatic and they were playing intense music sort of, and it really overpowered the scene, in my opinion.
Well guys, I really did enjoy this movie. This movie really, really surprised me. It really went above my expectations what this movie was going to be. The only issue I have with the flashbacks, but I really wouldn't barely even call that an issue, is really wasn't that big of a deal to me. So I'm going to go ahead and give Manchester by the Sea an A.
This movie was definitely really surprising for me. I do have a couple of minor issues with it. I feel like some of the editing could have been a little better. I didn't feel like it was necessary for this movie to be over 2 hours, but I still enjoyed it, and I'm going to give Manchester by the Sea an A-.
Well guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, let us know in the comments below what you thought about this movie, and also let us know what you thought about this review as well.
And guess what guys? We have business cards now.
Also guys, we are now halfway done with our Oscar reviews. We have done 5 movie reviews over the Oscar films. So,
out of the 9 that were nominated.
So we are more than halfway done.
And don't forget to follow us on social media. We have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at 2 Awesome Men.
Thank you so much for watching this video, and you will see us later.